It was an NYPD police officer. The gentleman who had given me the marijuana evaporated. He disappeared. I don't know where that man went. I turned around. He was gone. A black woman popped out of a police cruiser, and she said, "I'm so disappointed to see you here. Me and my son, we watch you on television. We watched you. And I'm so disappointed to see you here. I'm not going to take you to jail today, but I am going to take you where you need to go. But I need you to sign an autograph for me."
It is my esteemed pleasure to welcome to the stage Mr. Orlando Jones.
How are you?
Your interpretation of Mr. Nancy was so inspired.
That could have gone a lot of different ways. So I wasn't sure for a minute. Thank you.
You're very welcome. When I first discovered Neil Gaiman's works, it was back in the Sandman series, and I was the sort of new generation of folks coming into graphic novels, right? There were a lot of women in college, which is where I was, who sort of found that work. As a result, I have managed to work with him on a couple different occasions. So I reached out to him. He says he loves you, and you're the best.
That's very kind of him, definitely.
Tell me a story, please, from being on set of American Gods and working with him. I know he really leaned on you to help create character Bibles and things that were very important to the success of the show and continuity. Can you tell me a little bit about working with him?
For me, I would say it's some basic fangirl stuff.
Yes, right.
I mean, I'm a Neil Gaiman fan, right? So I tweeted Neil Gaiman when I heard they were making Anansi Boys, or rather American Gods. I tweeted him and I was like, "You know who would make a real good Mr. Nancy?" I know who would make a really good Mr. Nancy. Not that I'm bragging, but I know somebody. And I thought that when they called me and were like, "You should do the show," that's why they were calling. Turns out none of that made it anywhere. It was the casting director, Margie Simpkin, who was like, "You should call Orlando." And one day we were on set for season 2. I think it was the first day on set. And Neil was like, "Hey, you should write the character Bible for Mr. Nancy and help us, shape this thing." And I was like, "Are you serious, Brennan?" And he was like, no, I'm quite serious. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And then I wrote it and sent it to him, and he sent me back. I still have the email in all caps. "I effing love it." Spread it around. So, and that's how I started, creating and working on that show. So a beautiful experience and tremendous, graciousness on the account of Neil Gaiman, in the sense that he wrote the book and created it, but to invite me into it that way was extremely gracious on his part. So a lot of fun, and also very shocking on the day, because I wasn't expecting to be invited into that world, right? So it was just like, "Wait, are you serious?" I'm like, "Okay." So glad it happened, but definitely not typical.
What sort of an actor are you? And this will then dovetail into the next question I have. And by all means, if you want to get your questions in, please do queue up at the mic. What sort of an actor are you? Is it did you have, obviously if you read the book, books really, because Mr. Nancy makes, as Neil does, makes appearances throughout. To create a character Bible, did you have to dig even deeper than what the work presented to you?
No, because we'd already done season 1, and that world was really created by Brian Fuller and Michael Green. And so the rules of the world were well established, in my opinion. It was about continuing and maintaining, because I wasn't building within Neil's world, I was building within Brian Fuller and Michael Green's world. And the way that I had discussed the character with them initially, which for me, different people work different ways, so I tend to just adapt to whatever your process is. In this case, Brian Fuller and Michael Green like to tell you what they see the character, right? And I was like, okay, got it, and they release you. Like, I had one conversation, and then I shot the opening sequence, and it was 100 degrees outside, and the air conditioning was broken on stage, so my sweat was sweating. It was out of control. And I did 4 takes of the slave ship, and that was it. But Brian and Michael weren't there, so they really release you and say, here's what's important to us, go do your work. So, with that in mind, it gives me a lot of room to play, but I feel like the rules were very well established, and they're both brilliant writers, so it was, a lot of fun, but a lot of pressure.
Had the casting gone a different way, that scene would not have carried the impact that it did. It's one of the rare occasions for me where your portrayal is so good that it actually replaces the idea of who that individual was from the book. You read a book, sure. You're built something in your mind, and now I will forever see you in that character. Mm-hmm. It was exceptionally well done, and that scene was, I can still hear it, and I just didn't realize you were sweating for a reason.
Oh
right?
my goodness. Listen, I was on this, imagine this, if you will, folks. They cast me in a role where I'm playing a character, and the character first appears on a slave ship. Mm-hmm. And there's 50 black dudes dressed in pretty much just Speedos, greased up from head to toe to appear that they're sweating, but the air conditioner is broken, so there ain't no reason for the grease. And they're like, Orlando, why don't you come in here and we're going to do a couple of scenes of you doing Mr. Nancy, and then we'll take you back to your trailer. But the scene is 8 minutes long, so you just sweat through the entire suit, and then they take you and you change clothes, and you come back and you sweat through that suit, and they take. So that was my experience. So it was crazy to shoot it, but look, from an acting perspective, we've all heard all of that before. We've all seen it before. Mr. Nancy is older in Neil's version. This, at the time, it was 2016. People are in a different place. So I really wanted to create something that reflected where we are, but I really wanted to do something that I think reflects not just, quote, black anger, but everyone's anger. Because for anybody who's ever been to a Comic-Con, you are acutely aware that for the last 30 years, we have been the laughing stock of folks in offices, right? We've been, those people. Well, they smell funny. They're this, they're that, right? But they don't know anything about the con experience. They don't understand the community, the brotherhood. They know nothing about fandom, nothing, right? So for me, as somebody who got introduced to this, in 1995, by Sergio Aragonés, because I was working on Mad TV, and right? So, and I was you gotta understand something, for me, as a little kid, based on my Mad TV, I was having I was losing it because I was on the show, right? And I met the Spy vs. Spy dude, so I was losing it. And he was like, you should come to Comic-Con. I was like, okay. Wherever you want to go. And he took me to Artist Alley, and I started, collecting and all that in 95. And I just...
You are one of us.
I really am. So, but... And it's a special community. It's been a special relationship. I like going to cons because I've never got a chance to see my audience before. You do the work and you never see the people, right? So it's an opportunity to do that. And it's magical every time.
This is outstanding. I see, yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
I see we have a question over there. Come on up to the mic. What's your name?
No, are you good? You're not? Okay, sorry. Hey, how you doing? My name is Daniel Williams.
Did you say Daniel?
Daniel, yes.
Hi, Daniel.
I actually have
Daniel, did you just step in front of the white dude in the wheelchair? What's going on?
I asked him. I asked him.
Y'all just don't give a damn about white men at all no more whatsoever.
He said he checked his privilege at the door.
Okay, respect.
He said it was cool.
I just had to check on behalf of my man. What's going on here?
Well, thumbs up. He has a Navy hat on. I'm Army, so I guess naturally
he is a gracious man.
And thank you both for your service.
He is a gracious man, and definitely thank you for your service.
So I actually have 2 questions, if that's okay.
Yes, sir.
Is it truly one band, one sound?
Always one band, always one sound.
And then, what's the best advice you can give to a starting comedian that is also invested in his culture?
Spend as much time as possible on stage. Separate between the craft and the medium. The medium always changes. The craft remains the same. Okay. Eric Clapton playing the guitar is incredible on CD, on record, on digital download, all because the craft remains the same. The digital download, the CD, the cassette tape, that's the medium. Ignore that. So spend your time on stage, perfect the craft, and you'll be fine.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's excellent advice. How much does rejecting a fear of failure? Because, you know, to be successful as a comedian, it's, I think, one of the most challenging things to do, but you have to go out there and maybe experiment?
I mean, to be real, it's not for anybody but you, right? So I think when you can find the honesty to be honest with yourself, then it's not quite as scary as it might seem, right? And it gives you a level of comfort and relaxation. But if you think what you're doing is trying to please a bunch of people, then how do you know? I mean, people are so complex, that's impossible, right? So I feel like if your artistic journey is to try and please others, it's gonna be a rough ride. And if your artistic journey is to try and at least tell the truth from your perspective with some understanding that yours is not the only perspective, and it's not the most dominant perspective, right? Then I think with some humility, I think you can get some things done on stage, right? Because it's the last bastion of free speech. You can't, you know what I mean? It's tough. I'd just like to discuss briefly, and we'll get to your question, one thing that's been annoying me. I have been into CVS, and I've been into Walgreens. And I have noticed that they have an aisle for feminine hygiene. They got all kinds of products. But there is no product for male hygiene, none whatsoever. They just let men be as nasty as they want to do, okay? There ain't no penis butter, ain't no scrotum wash, nothing. Nothing. Y'all got whole aisles, napkins, feminine napkins, wash, everything. We got nothing. And ladies, I would think that you would want us to be cleaner. I really... You see what I'm saying? So this is on my chest, this is on my heart, right? Now, I went to the counter and I asked the man, where is the penis butter? And he called the police on me, he did. He was like, it's time for you to go, sir. And I was like, no, thank you. And he was like, I know who you are. And I was like, really? And he was like, you the little boy from Everybody Hates Chris. And I said, no, sir, I'm a full-grown man. I said, no, you definitely are. And now you got that new show, Abbott Elementary.
And you still don't have the butter you require.
And the problem is, not only did he not have the proper wash, I've been on both of those shows, but I'm not the person that he thinks I am.
Now you could do whatever you want in there.
Exactly. So, it's the most bizarre experience was I was walking down the street in Brooklyn, New York. It was another hot day. I had on hat, I had on glasses. I was trying to be incognito. I saw a guy, he saw me, he looked at me, I looked at him, I turned away. I noticed that he had alcohol in his hand and marijuana. I could smell it. And he yelled, hey! And I froze, because by the sound of his voice, he was very scary. And he said, stop, come here. I know you. I know you from somewhere. Where do I know you from? And I can't answer this question because how the hell would I know where he know me from?
And the list is so long.
And he says, did you play Samuel L. Jackson in Snakes on a Plane? Now I want you to think about this for a minute. Did I play Samuel L. Jackson in Snakes on a Plane? In my experience, usually Samuel L. Jackson plays Samuel L. Jackson. Is that not your experience? 3 names, none of them are mine. I said, no. I played Denzel Washington in Training Day. Because I didn't feel like giving him the satisfaction, you know what I mean? He said, oh, snap, that is you. Smoke this blunt with me. And I thought, it's 90 degrees, it's July, maybe this isn't the best place to be standing in the middle of the street smoking marijuana, but he was a frightening young man, so I decided just to taste it, just to make sure I didn't offend him. I took 1 hit, that's all it was. I don't appreciate you judgmental folks in the front row. It was 6 hits. I can see your eyes rolling from here. I can see you. The end of this tale is I heard the following sound. Whoop, whoop. And my body, I went, whoop, whoop. And I was waving my hand. And of course the smoke was in the air, so I was whoop, whoop, trying to get the smoke out of the air, but at the same time my butt was working with me and it was trying to suck the smoke in, so it was whoop, 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 whoop. It was an NYPD police officer. The gentleman who had given me the marijuana evaporated. He disappeared. I don't know where that man went. I turned around, he was gone. A black woman popped out of a police cruiser, and she said, "I'm so disappointed to see you here. Me and my son, we watch you on television. We watched you. And I'm so disappointed to see you here. I'm not going to take you to jail today, but I am going to take you where you need to go. But I need you to sign an autograph for me." And I said, "Yes, ma'am, whatever you want, I do." And I wrote an autograph because she thought I was the little boy from Everybody Hates Chris. I signed Tyler James Williams. To this day, she still thinks Tyler James Williams was smoking weed in the middle of Brooklyn. But alas, it was not. It was me. So it's a weird world when black people look at you and they even think we all look alike. I mean, we can't even blame white people for this. This was a black woman. She looked me dead in my face. It was ridiculous. So I'm so accustomed to that insanity in my life. You know, I've been on Grey's Anatomy many times and cussed out each time for it. No, I've been most deaf. I've dropped a hot 16. No. So yeah, it's an interesting journey.
So good. I'll come to you next. Let's go over here for a question. Hi, what's your name?
Hello, my name is Brian.
Hi, Brian.
Orlando, nice to meet you. I went to a historically black college and university, and so when I saw you in Drumline a long time ago, it was very relatable, a very relatable experience for me. Even my little brother was an extra. I believe y'all shot some of that stuff in Georgia, where I come from.
All of it.
Could you reflect on your experiences as the band director in Drumline?
So a lot of people don't realize that Drumline is based on the life of a producer. His name is Dallas Austin. And Dallas Austin is from Columbus, Georgia. And at about 11 years old, Dallas Austin decided that he was going to get on a bus and go to from Columbus, Georgia to Atlanta, Georgia to pursue his dreams. And he produced Another Bad Creation and TLC and Madonna and Whitney Houston and Brandy, and the list goes on. He is now a legend. So in high school, he had brothers and they all played the drums. And he was the youngest. So he knew all of the drum cadences from 8th grade that the seniors were playing. By the time he was a freshman, he had already been playing them for 4 years. So he was incredible at it. And we moved the story from college, from high school to college, just to age it up, the normal problems that go on with the studio. So a lot of my work was trying to understand what Dallas's relationship was with his band director. And Dallas Austin doesn't read music. He's a prodigy, gifted musician, but for him it's all feel. And I thought, well, what happens if that guy meets Miles Davis, who is all about not just the feel, but also your proficiency as a musician? And so I turned the band director into Miles Davis in order to create a juxtaposition for Nick Cannon to play against. It was Nick's first movie and Zoe's first movie, and they were all nervous, and just trying to create a foundation so we all understand where we were, and that's where Dr. Lee and Drumline came from.
Thank you.
My man.
Thank you. Hi, what's your name?
Hi. Hi, Orlando. It's Emily Whitten. Good to see you.
Hey, girl, hey.
I think the last time I saw you was at the Sci-Fi Weddings, and before that,
Yes.
Michael Davis's dinner long ago.
Long ago, yeah.
It's been a while, but
Back
it's
when I
great
was
to see
marrying
you.
people.
Yes, it was great. I enjoyed seeing you marry people off at
It was fun.
San Diego Comic-Con.
I'm sure half this audience is like, wait, what happened?
It was really cool, though. It was he officiated weddings at San Diego
did.
Comic-Con,
I did.
and it was warm there too. So everywhere you go, it's like
I brings the heat, girl. I brings the
You bring
heat.
the heat, exactly.
Moisture. Sorry.
Anyway, so as you were saying, you worked on the Anansi Boys, you worked on the book for that show and everything. And I know earlier in your career you've done some writing at various times. I was wondering, obviously you're an on-screen actor, you're a voice actor, but are you interested or do you have any current projects where you're looking at the writing aspect of your talents as well?
So I have been writing since I joined the Guild in 1990. I think it was 1990. I've never not been writing. It's just kind of the nature of it. There are no less than about 30 or 40 projects in development and ones coming out that I've written on. I tend to write on just about everything. How do I put this? Let me put it to you like this. The business of the business has the studio and the network. The studio really cares about the price it costs. And the network cares about putting it in front of their audience. But the studio's making it for the whole world, not just the network's audience. They're gonna sell it to other networks, right? As a creative, you're caught in the middle of that fight. As an actor, I have complete control, right? Because it doesn't matter what you write on the paper, I can make it mean whatever I want it to mean. Because I can just choose the tone, the pitch, the intention. I can make it whatever I want, right? But as a writer, you gotta get that approved by everybody, their mama, their cousin, their little cousin, their uncle, nay, the dog, and 4 chihuahuas. Everybody needs approval. And it's a nightmare process. So I often try and hide my writing and just do the acting because I figure the audience doesn't care who's writing this mess. They either like it or they don't. And I've been encouraged often to be more open about the fact that I've been writing and producing in Hollywood since I was 19 years old. I've spent that entire time behind the scenes. I've probably written and produced more stuff than I can remember at this point. But the acting side of it gives me an opportunity to connect in a very different way than writing and producing does, right? So I tend to just kind of play over here, but right now I would say stay tuned. There's a bunch of stuff coming from animation to science fiction to the new Anansi, since I wrote my Kweku Anasazi, which is his name, based on the original folklore of the gods. So that's next year.
Thank you so much. Good
Thank
luck
you.
with everything. Good
Very
to see
kind
you.
of you. Thank you.
So you always knew that you wanted to do this line of work, from the acting, writing, directing. I mean, you said you started at 19. You joined the Guild in 1990.
18. I knew I was a storyteller, and I knew that the craft was really important to me. And so I just tried to focus very specifically on the individual crafts, and then it would protect me. Because nobody wanted to write for me. Like when imagine being a woman, all right? You enter into this room, it's a bunch of guys, right? And if you're not the woman that they see as beautiful, right? Then where does the interesting role come from, right? So what it generally comes from is some young smart actress figuring out how to take this complete trash and turn it into something that another woman might see and be interested and be inspired by. I find myself in that same mess, right? Nobody was writing for me. But the process of getting it through is very difficult. I knew I had more control on the day in front of this audience, right? So I started to learn first how to write it and get it through the system, and I did that for 10 years. But then in front of the camera, I could just say, no, he's not gonna say that. He's gonna say, Coach, I look like I just jacked off an elephant, because that's way funnier than what y'all wrote, right? I knew that I could, and then people go, oh, that's hilarious, do that, right? So it was such an easier process. But I encourage you not to take that step, and I encourage you to go through the other process and stay in it, because in that other process, you won't get credit, right? But I didn't need the credit. I already was in the guild. I already had all the credit I needed. I just wanted to make it painless in terms of the process. And I feel like I've made a lot of decisions about how to make it painless and not about anything else. And different people want different things. And for me, I want to have a good time. I want y'all to laugh. I want to enjoy myself. I want you to enjoy yourself. All those components are important to me. Whereas if all you want to do is be a star and have people adore you, then you don't give a damn about any of that, right? And that doesn't work for me as a human. So my career, I think, is very much an amalgamation of me trying to maintain and protect who I am and not lose it in who Hollywood or who fame wants you to be. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes perfect sense. Let's go over here for a question. Hi, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Mariah. I feel like you just started to reference exactly what I was going to ask about, which is kind of the transition a little bit between pre-Guild to truly feeling established and successful. And I was going to ask a little bit about your experience as well in filming The Replacements and being kind of in that in-between where you're starting to have that star power and being in these bigger films. Yeah.
So you don't need that anymore, right? Because you have TikTok and so many other ways to broadcast your story instantaneously, be your story, either a true life story or whatever. So I don't think you need any of that anymore, truly. In fact, I think even if you were just making a song, if you just think about targeting and say, hey, I have this song, it's really cool, it's gonna be really hard to break through in New York, but if on social media I target Poland, I can probably get a lot of traction in Poland, because no one cares about Poland, but there's still people there with ears who might dig your song, right? Yeah. So we're in a different game. Replacements. I spent the entire movie in awe of Gene Hackman, because he's Gene Hackman. And I'd seen The French Connection as a little kid, and he was just, I met a completely different person, which made me more fascinated with Gene Hackman. I wanted to make Gene Hackman laugh. I spent the entire movie playing a character called the Redneck. And I had some teeth that went in my mouth, along with my character, the Redneck. Now, the Redneck spoke to the coach about the problems that were happening out there on that football field. Now, what I saw with my own eyes is there was a whole lot of black folks, a lot of Negroes out there, it was. And there weren't a whole lot of white boys. And I thought, what a good place for affirmative action right there. If we could get some affirmative action, we could get more white men on this field. And that redneck character is what kept Gene Hackman in stitches the whole movie. He was giggling about how completely and utterly racist this redneck was and how completely unoffended he was. And he was like, what are you doing? So he would be in tears laughing in between takes. That's where, Coach, it looks like I jacked off an elephant. This don't look natural. All that was in between the redneck, right? And my affirmative action jokes. And he took me to dinner every night, and he talked to me about Hollywood and acting, and we drank wine. It was probably one of the most magical experiences I've ever had. And I think of The Replacements as that time when I was hanging out with, Gene Hackman. And Keanu's lovely, don't get me wrong, I love Keanu Reeves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but Gene Hackman.
I was like, put your shirt on, Gene Hackman over there. You're embarrassing yourself, bro. You're embarrassing yourself. But it was, as an actor, right? My nerdy theater kid behind, I really wanted to dig into that. So he was lovely, and we stay in touch to this day. So it was a magical experience, it really was.
Thank you.
Thank you. We won't accept anyone else in the line, and I think we can get through these questions. Go ahead over here.
Hi. So a lot of people know you from Mad TV or Drumline or even 7-Up commercials. But for a lot of us here in the audience, we got introduced to you through the cult classic Evolution 2001. Mm-hmm. So my question was, do you have any fond memories or stories from working on that set with amazingly talented people like David Duchovny, Julianne Moore, and the rest of the cast?
So David Duchovny's hilarious, and he likes the practical joke. That's him. And I should say we, but it was really David. David, he did Xerox pictures of himself and his butt, which appears in the movie, as you might know. And then he wallpapered Sean William Scott's entire trailer with pictures of David and his butt. But I think for me, the big memory is we were shooting this scene where an alien goes in my butt. Why y'all laughing? What? And I had the flu, and I'd lost my voice the day before, and I was deathly ill. And it's the day when the scene starts with me yelling. Literally, the scene is, "Ah!" And bam, the doors open, and they slam me on a table, and they get the lubricant. There's no time for lubricant. There's always time for lubricant. You know what I mean? So David, David ad-libs this line. And for me, it's the funniest line in the entire movie because we would go play basketball together every day, and I was punishing him in basketball. I was an All-American basketball player. David Duchovny is an athlete. He can play. So we're in a battle royale, right? And I am killing him, all right? And he is not happy about it. And suddenly he says, no, you can't go in rectally. He thinks he's an athlete. And I'm looking at him like, I'm trying to turn my neck. I'm like, motherfucker, what you mean I think I'm an athlete? I bitch it. Of course, I can't do that because we were in the middle of the take. And right after that, the line is, we're going to go in anally, and I scream, there's always time for lubricant. And then they say, do you want some ice cream and what flavor? And I say, it doesn't matter, it's for my ass. A lot of butt references in this movie now that I think about it. But probably the most memorable because he knew the perfect ad lib at that time to get me to be like, what in the hell? Super funny guy, one of my favorite people. In fact, he and I are writing and producing a project together. It's actually why I'm a captain of the Jolovany ship in the X-Files fandom, because I love David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson I knew from American Gods. So yeah, that's my most, David doing practical jokes, and that line is what jumps in my head. Oh, and one last thing. If anybody wants to know what Great Googa Mooga is, I get this question a lot. Here's what happened. My grandmother was sitting on the sofa one day, and she sneezed. And she farted at the same time. This is what happened. And my granddaddy said, Great Googa Mooga woman, what the hell is wrong with you? And I had never heard the phrase Great Googa Mooga. I've never heard it before. So there was a field of dead dinosaurs, and Ivan Reitman said, say something when you see these dinosaurs, but it can't be a curse word. I don't want it to get an R rating. So I looked out and I said, Great Googa Mooga. But people say where it came from, and it came because my grandma sneezed and farted. That's where it came from. And my granddaddy wanted to know, Great Googa Mooga woman, what the hell's wrong with you? Nothing. Yeah.
Thank you. These will be our last two questions. Hi.
Hi. I was wondering, what is the most memorable audition you ever been on, good or bad?
Good or bad, most memorable? Mad TV audition. Quincy Jones was in the room. It's like a thing where you play a bunch of characters, and the casting directors, no disrespect, some are amazing, but some of them suck. And I didn't want to read with the casting director, so I decided I would do all of the characters. And when I was done, Quincy Jones was like, okay. Can you do any other characters? And I was like, oh shit, he is totally unimpressed. And I said, sure, why don't you throw out the character and I'll just do it. East Coast rapper, West Coast rapper, doctor, and I would just do the characters, and that's how I got the job on Mad TV. That's how I got it.
Great question, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, last question over here. Hi.
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 Great. So you sort of kind of started to answer this on your own before I even got to ask, but I was just wondering, I know Anansi Boys is coming up, but do you have any plans, either you or Neil, if you can speak for him, for any more Anansi stories?
Yes. there was such a, unfortunate ending to the way all that kind of happened. And from the writing producing side of the story, I was really interested in something that wasn't a part of that folklore. And what that really to me is that the Ashanti people of Ghana, which is where Anansi comes from, are a matrilineal society where men cannot rule or hold property. You must be a woman in order to hold any power within that society. Ergo, Anansi is a matrilinealist. He doesn't believe in paternal society. He doesn't even know what it is. And he thinks it's morally wrong, right? So I wanted to tell a story where there was somebody who was born into a family as he was, where his mother is the queen of all gods. His mother is the most powerful woman in the world. She is the goddess of all goddesses. And his father is the sky god, but his father is subservient to his mother. His mother makes all the calls. And his father's job was to produce a female heir. And they produced Anansi, who can't rule because he's not a woman. The idea of exploring a guy trapped in that, to me, felt dystopian enough that for many of my white male friends, they feel like they're in that dystopia, right? Because the playing field that's been tilted this way for so long is now here, and it's like, water's rushing back at me. I'm like, no, we just evened the playing field. Like, this shit is different, right? So the idea of just telling that kind of story where someone has had this experience, but the rules have been changed, felt like a way to empathize people that we now have been trained to want to hate. I wanted to tell a story, particularly coming from someone who is a African god, right? Who in the process of trying to save himself realizes that the only real saving is if we can save everyone, to save each other, right? And I didn't think I could tell that story in the context of the show I was in, but I could definitely tell it if I broke it out. So I'm done, to be honest with you. I'm just in my proofread mode, but the world and shape of it is sort of built.
Awesome.
And that's the story I really want to tell. Because I don't want dudes to feel like, oh, this isn't for chicks, you know what I mean? Like my dad talking about The Woman King, which I was obsessed with. And he was like, that ain't no man movie right there. That movie don't come with no biscuits or nothing. That ain't no man movie. They don't kill nobody in that. I was like, come on, Dad. But my dad's a guy's guy, right? But I wanted to tell a story where guys felt like we see where we are here and we're not the villains. There are villains, but that's not the core of it. And also I wanted to pull it so far away from race that what we're really talking about is how we all get through this shit show that we're living through, and not about how you bad and you suck and you're a bad. Like, I mean, that just seems pejorative and reductive, but who am I?
Sounds great. I look forward to seeing it at some point.
Thank you, my lady.
Orlando, we're going to take a selfie if we could, please. Oh, I love this. Give it up, everyone, for Mr. Orlando
Thank you guys
Jones.
for coming. Thank you.
This is Bo Billingsley, and you're watching Fandom Spotlight. Be sure to like and subscribe, but more importantly, have fun and follow your fandom.